What's good, everybody? We are back. You already know what it is. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about wants, needs, and expectations. So we're gonna hop right back into class and let's dive into it. So the dictionary defines a want as a deep burning desire for something. In fact, one of the definitions said it's to crave something, right? So we desire it so much that we need it. It's almost like the physical want becomes an emotionally driven feeling, I guess you could say. But what I had indicated from what I was reading is that it's based on an internal fulfillment. And for those of you on here, some might see that as, hey, that also is known as validation. And so internal fulfillment can be a good thing and a bad thing. Generally, I think that it has a negative connotation, just because the validation itself is not stemming from a place of security and independence, but rather what others think of you. And so that want is something that you desire to possess, usually solely for the reason of demonstrating what you have. Like that craving feeling. It's very flesh driven, very carnal. So the next is needs. Now when people say, how do you want your needs? Matt, what do you need? I'm going to put here, there's a photo of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He was a psychologist that gave total information, and in different levels there's security, food, there's all these different specific topics up and down the ladder that you're going to see up and down this pyramid. And this is what he portrayed, that every human has a necessity for. What's going to serve today as our statement for a need is a non-negotiable, right? And so needs, wants, and expectations are entirely subjective as well as they are objective, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be demonstrating both, and then I will leave to you, the viewer, how you want to perceive or portray wants, needs, and expectations in your own words. So I think we can all agree objectively that in a relationship especially, that mutual respect is not only beneficial to a relationship, but that it is so much a need because you want to feel accepted by your partner. You want to feel like your boundaries are honored as an individual. You want to feel heard. You want to feel seen. Especially in the case of men, right? We've talked about this before. We as men have to have that respect. When men are looking for relationships, marriage, and even in the workplace, we desire to be respected by other men, right? But we also desire to be respected by women. And so in the context of a relationship, something like that might be if we are out in public with friends or at a social gathering, perhaps we've shared something in a vulnerable state with a person, and when we shared that vulnerable detail, she decides at the dinner party to share with everybody that vulnerable detail. And I don't know if it's coming from a place of spite or anger, or it doesn't really matter, but it's the fact that rather than giving you the benefit of the doubt that she wasn't going to share that information and be privy to it, she decided to kind of air out the laundry in a social setting, which is totally disrespectful. And most men would not tolerate that, but I think a lot of men have a fear of not being respected, and I think that's a valid fear. We've talked before about how women desire to be received and loved and cared for and nurtured, but a man's biggest indicator of what he wants in a relationship is respect. So along those lines, I'm going to share with you guys just a few of my own subjective, right? So that's my personal beliefs in what a relationship need, like a necessity in a relationship is, particularly for me, that I think a lot of you can relate to. One of that has to deal with effective communication. Because for me personally, one, as a man, let's just be honest, we're not the best with words or how we come across things. And again, it's because our brains are wired differently. But two is also because I've had to grow up with a number of disabilities my whole life, that I need somebody that can understand when I'm trying to communicate towards something, what that might be, and how they approach that, right? Are they going to be respectful of that? Are they going to understand where I'm coming from? Are they going to take things to heart? Are they going to misinterpret something that I said when that's not how I meant it to come out? And so it's so important that we actively are seeking, as men especially, to become better communicators, because we all know that women especially love to talk. When women get together, the girls get together, they literally just talk. So they talk about the latest and greatest thing. They talk about the newest guy they're talking to. They talk about the new job promotion. So we as men need to understand that if we want to actively have healthy relationships with women in particular, we are going to have to lift a finger and actively seek to become effective communicators. So that's a big thing for me, is somebody who can understand where I'm coming from, and who also, I'll put a definition up here, does not stonewall, which we will get into in later videos, but this is something primarily that narcissists usually do, and I believe sociopaths. The other thing that's important in a relationship, and there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this, and that's completely fine, is the actual percentage somebody puts into a relationship. Now, I love the context of 50-50 in a relationship. You know, the old adage, it takes two to tango, right? But what we found psychologically is that there's always going to be one who has more assertiveness or has more dominance than the other, right? And the men's influence. So us men are going to advocate to our own benefit, right? In the sense that the man has to have the power in the relationship. The man has to be dominant. The man has to be the one doing this stuff, right? And you'll have the women saying that the woman has to have the power, or you'll have women that are entirely okay with being, and they're all like extremely like feminine, and they enjoy being taken care of in that manner. It doesn't really matter, because there's both sides to the argument, but I like the idea of 50-50, but we've found that that's not possible. Now, what I will say is that you need to find somebody that has effort, right? For me, that's a necessity. If they don't respect me or my boundaries, or they don't put the effort into a relationship, well, then it's not really a relationship, right? It's like a one-way relationship, and you don't want that either. Basically, the premise of it is that if the romance is not reciprocated, if they're not showing interest back and it's you doing all the work, trust me, brothers, sisters, it is absolutely not love. If it's not reciprocated, it's not love, and you need to get out there, you know? Now, another thing that we can agree on is what they call autonomy. Basically, to me, it's just self-independence, right? And we've gone over this in videos before. A healthy relationship consists of being able to do things on your own and still have that alone time with yourself. Because if we have the mutual respect and the mutual trust and the effective communication, you don't need to worry about me going out and doing this or that, you know, jeopardizing something that I would genuinely care about. And I think that's the beauty of people who are in healthy relationships, is that when you're by yourself, they're like, yeah, you need space, go ahead. You guys empower each other and push each other to be better. And so I think that's extremely healthy, and I think you should take that time to yourself. Now, my favorite is expectations. When I wrote up this word, right, expectations for perfectionism, I generally think that it has a negative connotation. But then I started doing the research, right, and I consider there's two ways. One, we have realistic expectations. Two, we have unrealistic expectations. Realistic expectations are healthy, and they demonstrate that you guys have emotional maturity. Imagine that. Unrealistic expectations. What does this look like? An example would be that people genuinely don't think that you argue when you're in a relationship, let alone a marriage. In fact, I've even heard that it's unhealthy and people shouldn't be married if they haven't had an argument, as well as people bragging that they never had an argument, okay? That's a massive red flag to me, right? Because that means somebody is either too agreeable in the marriage themselves, right? If you never had an argument, or somebody's genuinely not being honest, which violates the need for mutual trust. I'm sure you know a few couples that think that it's this, they think that it's a trophy, right? We never argue, and just like there's a healthy agreement, there's a healthy disagreement, okay? Throwing things, like I talked about, growing up with that, things being thrown, people being hit, okay, that's not healthy. That's not how we solve things. A healthy disagreement, you guys might, raise your voice at each other. You might get angry. Somebody might storm the room, might leave the room. Somebody might do some things out of malice or spite for a little while. And if you guys are effective at communicating and, God is in the center of your relationship or marriage, then everything's going to be kosher. But it's an unhealthy thought, right? To think that all relationships are devoid of any conflict, that you won't have disagreements. And the scariest thing is the people that get in relationships that have not been able to find themselves, one of the biggest characteristics that they have is they try to change their partner, mold their partner into what they want. And unfortunately, because of my issues and my insecurities, I had a lot of that for a while, right? I had a lot of that in my past where I kind of just became this agreeable guy, that nice guy that agrees with things and doesn't want to rock the boat because he doesn't want to upset her. And now for those of you who know me now, I'm very in your face. I mean, I have a very polarizing personality. And so some people, you're going to like me or you're going to hate me, which that is what it is. I can't silence my truth and silence the kind of person that I am just because people are upset about how I speak or how I talk or how I act. I don't lose one wink of sleep at night thinking about trolls on the internet or what people think of me because I honestly have learned my identity and I continue to learn my identity, especially in who God wants me to be, and so that hasn't really plagued me for a number of years, I would say. But this is a side note to the men real quick. The majority of men that are dumped in relationships have to deal with the fact that the man changed himself to be what the woman wanted him to be. Now, what does this look like? You might say, Ari, what does this look like? Let's say you played guitar, right? Let's say you were actually good at playing guitar. Maybe you started dating a girl and at first, she enjoyed that, but then you grew complacent with her, right? It's just like the common saying, the courting never stops even when you're married. Along those same lines, on top of it, you guys are you used to plan date nights, right? And now you're oh, hey, every Friday is pizza and movie night. Women like spontaneity. I don't care what anybody says. Women like spontaneity, and they like to be led. That's that masculine energy. They like to be led by the masculine. And so for a man to plan things out, keeps them, on their toes. Oh, what are we doing? Oh, what's the excitement? Oh, what's the adventure, right? And so when you give up your passions and your hobbies, and so when you become too agreeable and you give up your passions and your hobbies to suit her, one, you're not in your masculine, right? But two, this does more damage than you could possibly imagine. Because at first she might see it as admirable, right? She might be oh, he's so sweet that he's doing this for me. But eventually you become a kiss ass. You're a people pleaser, and you demonstrate to her that you can basically get rolled over by anybody. Now, some research that I was doing was looking into this. Imagine a scenario of you guys are eating at a dinner table. Again, you're out to eat at a very nice restaurant. Somebody says something that you disagree with, but you don't say anything. And then she kind of steps up to the plate, right? Somebody says something that you don't disagree with at the table. Maybe you're with friends. And she basically asks you to step up to the table, kind of, gives you a jab, kind of as just being a little sassy. She's expecting you to be a man, not only tease her, but also, by being playful, finding a way to be assertive too, Because what if, for example, the gentleman or the lady at the table was talking poorly about the woman that you're with? And so when you're this agreeable man that just does anything for everybody and just gets walked over and, and all that good stuff, she loses all her respect and admiration for you, because she knows that if something ever actually happened to her in a physical manner, and this is a biological imperative that I talk about with you guys, she knows that you will not be able to defend her, because if you can't even stand up for her when it comes to what they call verbal sparsing, she's not going to be able to trust you when it comes to a physical altercation. God forbid something were to happen to her. And so each time she's slowly losing her trust and her confidence in the relationship. And I'm going to do a separate video on that subject, because there's like so much to be able to go off of just on that. But another unrealistic expectation is that your partner should be able to read your mind, right? I think we're all guilty of this, and I don't think that we fully realize when we're doing it and how we're doing it. I think we also, because of the way we grow up, we kind of expect things to be done a certain way, and when they're not, it really messes with our head. I mean, for me, I like to clean, right? So I couldn't be with somebody who just trashes a room. Like, I'd have to be with somebody who also cleans, maintains the house, keeps things sterile, and disinfects things, which I sincerely hope each and every one of you are doing. So what I want to ask you are a few questions, right? Because we all love the idea of love. We love that feeling of love when we're in the honeymoon stage. But what about after, right? What about when the turmoil starts coming of job relocations or career changes or education, and then we don't fully know what to do with ourselves in that manner? What about when we give ourselves to our partner emotionally, physically, and now we have that full vulnerability? We've decided to let our walls down, which is really hard for some of us, and we decided to open up our hearts. So what do you do when your partner isn't the prince or the princess that you thought they were? What do you do when you have this Disney fairy tale idea that love was exactly this, and these wants, needs, and expectations were totally realistic when in reality they weren't? If you want something bad enough, you have to put the work in. That is the bottom line. If somebody does not want to put the work in the relationship, again, there's the door. So I was coaching a client last week, and I'm going to end with this. I was coaching a client last week, right? And they keep on attracting a certain caliber of people in their life. And they don't know what it is. They don't know. It feels like a magnet, It feels like a magnet that's drawing them to these people. And so they asked me how they can attract the right person into their life. And you know what I told them? I said, you as an individual must become we're talking about a full new identity, right? These characteristics that they're looking for. Oh gosh. These characteristics that they're looking for, they must become these new things that they want to attract. They also have to become. They have to put the work in. Nothing comes easy. You can't cut corners. You cannot cut corners. Nothing comes easy. Distinctly told them that you as a person must become and demonstrate the person that you are searching for in your own life first. So what does this entail? We're healing wounds. We're healing past traumas. We're healing attachment issues. And we're creating new neural pathways of positive affirmation in our body, right? We're thinking differently. We're giving a different outlook. We're changing how we think, and we're acting upon these new things. So the bottom line is this: you have to do the work. There are no shortcuts. Wants, needs, and expectations. Which ones do you have? And if you have unrealistic expectations, it's time to let those go. I mean, I have so many separate videos, but I've literally seen women say that they need a man who's 6 feet and above and makes $100,000 plus a year. Okay, that's great, but you just eliminated probably 85% of men in the world just with those statistics. So when the time comes and you want to get married later, don't come crying saying that there's no good men left. There's just not the men that you want. Because you spent all that time having unrealistic expectations about what would happen and not putting the work in yourself. And the same thing goes with men. They want these supermodels, they want these baddies, right? They want to, just like be able to show her off and be that power couple. But are you willing to put in the work? If you work a job as a janitor and you choose not to get an educational, like higher education, just because you don't want to and you don't want to provide for your family, that's on you. You're not going to attract those types of women. So hopefully this video was important. Hopefully this video was beneficial to you. Hit the notification bar, the bell button, so I release videos every Tuesday. You won't want to miss them. And as always, stay frosty.